Oops. Good evening. Hello, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I wanted to run through 5 things with respect to time of use and certainly answer any questions you have. The first is to give you a little bit of background on time of use rates, just to bring you up to date. To talk to you about the Oakville Hydro Implementation Plan, to talk to you about our communication plan, to also talk about time of use periods and the fee schedules, and to look at a little bit of cost comparison between present rates and time of use rates going forward. So let me start with a little bit of background on time of use. As you know, this is a provincial government initiative, and something that we're required to do is to implement time of use rates. The reason for this is that the province needs to replace 80% of the electricity infrastructure by 2025. The intent of time of use rates is to switch electricity demand to off-peak hours. And this will do a number of things. It will reduce the existing strain on the system. It will limit the need for coal-fired electricity plants in the province. It will help defer the investment in electricity infrastructure, and it will encourage energy conservation. All 4 things will help with this need to replace the infrastructure in the province. In terms of the Oakville Hydro Implementation Plan, this began back in February of this year, February 15th, when public notice was given about what was happening in terms of time of use rates. The conversion to time of use for residential customers began on April the 15th, and it will continue over from that date forward over roughly a 60-day period, with approximately 1,600 customers being converted to time of use rates on a daily basis. And the first time of use bills will start going out on June the 2nd. And this will continue for a rolling 60-day period, and the last initial time of use bill will go out August the 30th. In terms of the communication plan to customers, we've been communicating with customers in a number of ways, through print, through the electronic medium, and through face-to-face meetings. So since February of this year, we provided customers with a bill insert. We've sent them a postcard to their homes. We've sent them a personalized letter from the CEO on March the 15th, letting them know when they would be converting to time of use. We have put the time of use rates and related questions and answers on our website. We prepared a smart meter fact sheet, which we presented to customers. We've had internal training for our staff, both in terms of the customer service area and in terms of frontline operations staff, to be able to answer questions on time of use. We had an article in the Chamber of Commerce magazine to get some exposure. We've taken out advertising in the local papers, the Oakville Beaver and Oakville Today. This started last week and will run monthly from May through August. Let me show you what the article looks like in the newspaper. You may have seen it last week. I won't leave it up for you to read at this point in time, but it's a factual explanation of what time of use is about. So that's out there for people to see. In terms of community events, we have tried to have a face-to-face presence as much as possible. We were at Earth Hour and talked about time of use. Just this weekend, we were at the Oakville Energy Fair and handed out information, talked to about 500 customers there. We spoke at the Chamber of Commerce Governance Committee meeting. We're also at the Halton Region Environmental Awards. So we've tried to hit a number of areas where we thought people would be interested in time of use. We're also going to be going to future events. Midnight Madness we'll have a presence at. We're planning a special event at Oakville Place for early August. And we're also going to the Oakville Scouts 100th anniversary session, and we'll be speaking about time of use there. So it's our view that there shouldn't be any customers in Oakville who are not aware of time of use rates. Let me give you an idea of what the message looks like that we're trying to get out to customers. This is what customers see when they go to our website. It's in our postcard, our bill insert, and fridge magnets that we prepared. We have 2 types of fridge magnets, and I have copies here that I can hand out to councillors at the end of the meeting if they're interested in seeing them. We gave out a number of these this weekend at the event. We prepare 2 types. We prepare one with the rates on them and one with the rates not on them. And the one you see here is the one without the rates. We much prefer to give out the ones without the rates on them. and direct customers to our website to be able to get the rate information. The reason for this is that, as you can see, there are summer and winter rates. The rates can change each May and November. We're very concerned about magnets and information going out which has the rates on them, because once they change, people are going to come back and say, you've given me something with another rate on it. Some customers want the rates, some don't. So in any event, I can show you those after the meeting. We do encourage customers to go to our website or to call into the office to get information. As you see, the rates vary on a number of factors by time of year, by day of the week, and by time of day. So it can get a little bit complicated for customers when they first see the information. And as I mentioned, the rates will more than likely change in November of this year again. And two things will happen in November. The different periods, off-peak, mid-peak, and on-peak will change, and possibly the dollar amounts for each of those could change as well. Now, we've done some sensitivity analysis in terms of moving from the standard rate to the time of use rate. And what I'm showing here are three different scenarios. The first scenario looks at customers who use electricity more or less at the same level all day long. So these are users who use electricity over all three time periods, on-peak, off-peak, and mid-peak, more or less the same. The second scenario looks at customers who have high usage during the mid and peak times. And the third scenario looks at customers who have high usage during on-peak, which is obviously the highest cost area. As you can see, the switch to time of use can have a positive or negative effect on customers in all usage categories. It's not as simple as saying, if you use a lot of electricity in the on-peak period, your bill is going to go up. It depends on what kind of usage you use over the day. So you'll see a percentage change. What we've tried to do is look at a number of customers in these various ranges and come up with averages on what their usage will be like. So for example, if you look at daily high usage, this would be somebody who was using more or less the same usage all day long. When they go to time of use, their electricity cost could drop to 94% of their present usage, or it could go up to a little over 100%. What I've shown in the right-hand column is the maximum increase in a monthly bill based on that. And you'll see that it ranges from 4 cents up to $6.47, depending on what category they're in and depending on how much usage they have over the course of a day. So when we're communicating with customers, it's very difficult to give them blanket examples of this. A number of customers feel that automatically by going to time of use, their rates are going to go up, and that's not the case. It's also important to recognize that this analysis we've done on cost differentials is only looking at people's usage at the present time. It does not take into consideration conservation opportunities. So if somebody, for example, is using high usage on peak, if they talk to us about opportunities, we can show them how to reduce their amount of consumption during those periods, which is going to lower their costs. So I think this type of analysis is very important for customers to understand, which is why we're trying to get out to so many of them at the present time. Customer reaction to time of use, the amount of negativity expressed has been relatively small compared to the number of customers that we have. At the time that the CEO letter went out, which was March 15th, we did have a slight spike in the number of inquiries about time of use. I would say that we probably had, over a 2-week period, maybe 50 additional calls to the organization about time of use, which, when you look at the number of customers we have, in terms of residential customers, about 57,000, very small number. They were concerned about why we're doing this, and we explained that to them. And the primary concerns that came in terms of time of use were from people who are staying home all day. And they're primarily seniors or stay-at-home parents who say, I'm here all day, I need my power on, in the summer I need it for air conditioning, in the winter I need it for various things. I can't simply turn off everything in the middle of the day because of my circumstances. Those are the primary people that we've had concerns raised by. Once we explain to them what we're trying to accomplish and the opportunity for choice and how we can help them conserve, most of them are reasonable about the situation, and we pass them along to another part of the organization who can help them with the conservation side of things. The experience in other jurisdictions that we've spoken to is that at the actual time of use billing, there's about a 1% increase in calls as a result of the conversion. So a lot of the concern about significant numbers of people expressing outrage over time of use has not been our experience or the experience in other jurisdictions that we have contacted in Ontario. In terms of dealing with the concerns, we do believe we have the resources available to deal with increased customer questions. We're also changing our messaging slightly, where historically we have separated discussion on time of use and discussion on conservation and demand management. We're trying to marry those two messages together now and say to people, as we move to time of use, if you have concerns, please talk to us about conservation methods, which will help reduce your costs. And we found that that's what customers are looking for, is the opportunity for choice and to be able to do something and not feel trapped. So in terms of where we stand at the present time in time of use, we believe that things are under control with respect to customers. We certainly get customers calling in, but once we have the chance to talk to them and explain where we are, we believe that they're understanding where we're going moving forward. And we'll be able to provide you with another update at a further meeting once we actually get to customers receiving their time of use bills and having to pay them. So that was the extent of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions or certainly do them later.
Well, you've got them. Councillor Adams.
Thanks so much for the information. It's material that we're seeing in our papers and everywhere else, and we're trying to add it to our newsletter as well. Can you tell me how time of use pricing interacts with the ability to contract to a retailer for some sort of fixed contract? So if you were with a retailer, what happens now and what happens in the future?
Well, if somebody is with a retailer, and many retailers do not have time of use rates, people can if somebody is with a retailer, they can end the contract with the retailer under whatever terms there are and come back to Oakville Hydro if they choose to do that.
So people will continue to have the choice of purchasing through a retailer?
Yes.
Okay, and under the same conditions as they might otherwise have had?
Yes, they can still go to a retailer as they would have previously, yes.
Okay, and what practices are we seeing from retailers in the marketplace as a result of the time of use initiation?
I guess the biggest single reaction or method that they have is that many of them are trying to play up the fact that they are not going to go to time of use. They are going to charge a flat rate.
And is their flat rate changing as a result in this period of time?
Not to my knowledge, it's not, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
There's a few numbers, though, I think would be very helpful to anybody who's trying to think whether we should try to conserve or not. And can you remind me what the standard rate was, what the peak rate is, and what the mid-peak and what the off-peak is? Yes,
I certainly can. The standard rate was, at the time that we did these comparisons, 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour for the first 600 kilowatt hours used, and then 7.9 cents per kilowatt hour for anything over 600 kilowatt hours. If you go to the time of use rates, for off-peak, it's now 5.9 cents. For mid-peak, it's 8.9 cents. And for on-peak, it's 10.7 cents.
I think that's pretty useful for people. They know how they used to do it, so they can calculate it pretty fast as to whether they're going up or down.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It.
Councillor Knoll.
The slide that's currently on the screen that illustrates the impact on your average customer, can you just qualify that a little bit? Who is this average, not who, but give us the conditions of this average customer. What would this customer look like?
Sure. The daily high use would be the type of person that I mentioned who has called in quite often. Somebody who's stay at home most of the day and would use basically more or less the same level of usage from morning until evening. And the reason that you see the differential in terms of the percentage change is that would relate to how much electricity they actually use and what time of the day they're actually using it at. So though they're using it more or less consistently over the day, there may be some blips in one place or the other. Because remember, as I mentioned earlier, there is a difference in the present rate between somebody using under 600 kilowatt hours per month and somebody using over. So that's a blended rate. So there are people during the off-peak time who are actually paying less than they were paying when they were on the old pre-time of use rate. So you'll see a range there.
I apologize if I don't understand the slide, but you got a account type, and both account types are daily high usage, and high on peak. So
Okay, oh, I'm sorry. The first one is daily high usage. The next one is high usage in an off-peak and an off-peak time. And the third one is high on-peak usage. So they would be using it during the highest rates over the summer periods in the morning and at night.
okay. So based on those three categories, so there's the middle one's mislabeled. Then.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
So based on these categories, and based on, so this would be a typical household in these three categories?
Well, these are averages of people in those. There's probably about 20 customers in each of those categories. So what this shows is when they use it. It doesn't show how much they're using over the course of a month.
Okay, so but what does the maximum dollar increase per month represent at the end then? Is that the cumulative potential increase in the course of a month?
No, that's what somebody, for example, if you go to the high on-peak usage, that $6.47 increase per month would be somebody who they're now paying 105.5% of what they were paying pre-time of use.
Okay. Okay, I don't fully understand those scenarios that you pointed. So I'll move beyond that. Maybe we can talk offline because I'm not understanding this chart. The second question relates to something that Councillor Elgar just brought up, and that is the change in the rate structure recently. Does this chart represent the new updated rates as well? So do these increases, maximum dollar increase per month, represent the new summer rates, I guess, that are in place as of May 1st?
Yes, they would.
So the combination of time of use and the new rates will only result potentially to the subscribers in increases similar to this. So you're suggesting a lot of the hysteria around, $100 or $50 or $60 per month increase is not founded. This is what the average consumer is going to see, depending on what category they fall into?
Depending on what category they fall into, the increases should be consistent with this, yes. Now, there will always be exceptions to that. For example, if, let me go back to this slide. If somebody were, over the summer months, when you look at the on-peak period being from 11 to 5, if somebody were using all of their electricity usage in that period of time, their rates could be their costs could be considerably higher. And if you go to the winter period, if somebody gets up in the morning, has a shower, makes breakfast, leaves for the day, comes back at 5 o'clock, makes dinner, does their laundry, and uses nothing in the other two periods of time, theirs could be significantly higher as well.
Do any of those illustrations reflect some of the problem or some of the complaints or concerns you've had using, for example, maybe a senior citizen that's home all day long, has the air conditioning at 71 degrees all day long? Does one of those scenarios reflect that kind of situation?
Well, I would believe over the summer period, the first one, the first scenario where somebody who's using electricity all day, because they're going to be using it over the peak period from 11 to 5 for air conditioning as an example.
And so based on that estimate, that typical customer, that senior citizen that's using air conditioning all day long, is going to experience potentially only 55-cent increase in their billing.
No, they could experience more depending on how much of the electricity used during that period of time.
Okay, I'm totally confused. I'll move off that. Do subscribers know specifically what day that the switchover is? I remember I got my letter, it gave me a range. Does a customer know the exact day that the switchover happens?
Yes, they should. In the letter, it was specific.
The letter was specific?
Yes.
Have all the letters gone out now?
Yes.
Okay, I seem to recall a range, but I'll go back and read that. Okay, I would like to talk to you more about this offline, because I'm not understanding this at all, and I am getting a lot of questions about this, so
Okay.
I'd like to understand it better, thanks.
Sure, you're welcome.
Councillor Vilmer?
Yeah, sorry a second time, but
Sure.
it's a pretty interesting topic, and the more you get into it, the better it gets. But there's one thing if I could get from you, of the power consumption of the average household, what percentage of the average consumption is peak, what is mid-peak, and what is off-peak? Because I think that would help everybody understand it, because if you look at it, the peak, if you continue the way the peak, your standard to your peak, your costs are going to go up in the period 57%. If you go mid-peak, they're going up 30.8%. And if you wait until after late to do everything, you're going to save 13%. But the percentage, what I need is the numbers of percentage load. Like, what's your peak load? What's the percentage of the total average?
Yes, I don't have that information with me. I'll have to get that for you. I just don't have that number with me.
But I think that would help everybody understand. But I think with these numbers, I think everybody should be able to understand pretty easily that you have to consume a lot less and move to the off-peak hours pretty fast.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think one of the things to note is that weekends and holidays are always off-peak. And that's one of the messages that we've been trying to get across to customers who are saying, there's certain things that I have to do, especially in the winter period. There's certain things I have to do between 5 and 7. I have to do my laundry. I have to do certain things. And we're saying, but if you either move it to later in the evening or do it on the weekends, you're going to be saving money. And that's what this is all about, is choice and getting people to change their habits. And some of them are gleaning onto that very well. Some of them, it's a little bit slower.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Golding.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Lucy Ricci to take you through the financials.
Welcome. Lucy Ricci, Council, is the Chief Financial Officer for Oakville Hydro, the Acting Chief Financial Officer. And Ms. Ricci, we look forward to your information. This is usually the best part of the show.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Councillors, today I would like to walk you through a few slides on the consolidated financial results of the corporation for 2010, highlighting any notable changes over the prior year. Looking at the asset side of the balance sheet, you will note that total assets have increased by $38 million over the prior year. The major change of note from 2009 on the current asset line is an increase in our cash balance. We will discuss this change in the cash balance in a little more detail later on in my presentation when we review the cash flow statement. On the liability side of the balance sheet, notable year-over-year changes are present on the current liability line, reflecting the tax obligation related to the sale of discontinued operations. In other liabilities, year-over-year changes relate to the regulatory liabilities line, primarily related to the smart meter implementation. The retained earnings line reflects a notable year-over-year increase, a direct impact of our net income for 2010 in the amount of $85 million, offset by dividends paid in 2010. On the income statement, net income from continuing operations for 2010 was $5.1 million as compared to $1.7 million in 2009. Primary drivers for this increase in net income are distribution revenue. Distribution income was up in 2010, a direct result of our warmer summer that we've had last year, which drove up consumer consumption. Other revenue was also up as a result of increase in services, in addition to higher interest earned on cash balances from higher deposit interest rates. Also to note on the income statement is the income from discontinued operations in the amount of $80.3 million. This amount relates to the gain on sale generated by the sale of the business. Moving on to the cash flow statement, as previously mentioned, we had an increase in our cash balance year over year. In 2010, the cash balance increased from $7.1 million at the beginning of the year to $64.1 million at December 31st. So primary drivers in this cash increase were proceeds received from the sale of the discontinued operations, in addition to cash generated in operations. Proceeds from the sale, notable expenditures for the year were $33.3 million, capital asset additions relating primarily to our distribution system, and it also included the work in process for our transformer station. $9.1 million related to smart meter implementation, and $42.6 million of dividends were paid, of which $40 million was a special dividend to the town. Just a quick overview for the payments that we've made to the town. Oakville Hydro, from inception, has structured itself to return a healthy tax-effective cash flow to its shareholders, the shareholder to the town of Oakville. In addition to the interest on notes and the building lease, in 2007, a formal dividend policy was adopted by the Board of Directors of Oakville Hydro. As a result, for the past 3 years, Oakville Hydro, on average, returned $10 million annually to the shareholder. Since incorporation in 2000, the total funds returned to the town total $116.1 million. Our 2011 dividend payment, based on the 2010 financial results, amount to $2.8 million to be paid at June 30th. At Oakville Hydro, we are quite proud of our history of providing healthy returns to our municipal shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Ricci. All right, Council. If there are no further questions, we need a mover and seconder for the recommendation in your agenda. Councillor Elgar moves it. Councillor Lepworth seconds. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's adopted. That brings us to the new Oakville Hospital update, and the recommendation will be that you receive the verbal update from the Chief Administrative Officer and the Mayor. And we'll start with the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Ray Green.
Thank you very much, Mayor Burton. First and foremost, I am pleased to advise Council that the hospital project, I'll be speaking mainly to the hospital project itself, continues to track on schedule. Certainly the hospital has a great team of staff that are working on the project, along with a very experienced consulting team that is matched up with a town technical team that continues to work with the hospital. We have a senior management team which is led by myself, which works with John Oliver and his senior management team. Certainly to date, the project and the land in particular has its zoning approvals. We have a master site plan that has been approved. The H that was on that master site plan was recently lifted as a result of the approved environmental studies and the servicing study. There's been a recent alteration, amendment to the master site plan, which take into account changes to the various stormwater management pond. And within the next 2 weeks, we'll actually have a site alteration permit, which will be issued on the property, which will allow the grading work to be commenced. The hospital's tender, the new hospital's tender, did close under the Infrastructure Ontario through their DBFM project model. That was in February of this year. There were 3 pre-qualified submissions that have been under a great deal of scrutiny and evaluation over the past several months. It is anticipated within a week that a preferred proponent will be announced to carry forward into the final negotiations of a contract, and it is anticipated that the financial close of the project will occur in August. In the meantime, though, so that time is not lost, once the preferred proponent is named, there will be an early works agreement that will be entered into between the hospital and the preferred proponent, which will allow the preferred proponent to begin those final approvals, everything from the building permits and all the various servicing agreements, including an agreement with the town of Oakville, which would see the third line extended north of Dundas. So the project itself for the new hospital construction is tracking on schedule, and certainly staff is doing everything it can to facilitate moving forward on this project. So with that, Mayor Burton, I would pass it over to you unless there's some questions with respect to the technical side of the hospital project.
Thank you for the fascinating update for council. Are there questions, councillors? Councillor Knoll.
Are you going to be touching on the hydro issue and the financing, I assume, in your report? Okay, then I'll hold my question.
Any other questions about what the town manager presented? All right. Councillor, would you just help me understand your question to make sure that I answer it?
Wanted a progress report on the hydro portion of the deal, so where the power plant fits within the current, I guess, planning process, and also any progress on the town's local share contribution.
Okay. With a great deal of pleasure, I tell you, Council, that the big news on the hospital file is that Halton Healthcare has progressed to the point where its board has decided that it can reduce its request for a donation from the town of Oakville. The request has gone down from up to $200 million to only up to $130 million. This number may decrease again later as further analysis of the bids progresses and the local share plan numbers are refined for the hospital's financial close. As you recall, our up to $130 million piece of the donation pledge is called an up to amount because any savings from the bidding process are to be applied to reducing our donation. The rest of our commitment was up to $40 million toward life cycle costs over the 30-year period of the hospital design, build, finance, maintain process, and up to $30 million in a standby contingency on the bid process. As a result of the refinement of the project through the Infrastructure Ontario's value-protecting design, build, finance, maintain process, Halton Healthcare's board has advised that this up to $70 million total amount is no longer being requested. We expect to have a final donation number later this year for you. Our staff will be involved and be at the table from this point forward for all aspects of work by Halton Healthcare and the province to calculate and refine the final local share plan amounts. Remember, also, no money flows from the town of Oakville until substantial completion, which is now slated for sometime in 2015. As part of the project's refinement to date in the design, build, finance, maintain process, the Halton Healthcare Board has also advised the new Oakville Hospital will use a traditional central utility plant like the old hospital does. The Halton Healthcare Board has committed to covering the costs that Oakville Hydro has incurred to develop the district energy project with them that is now being replaced by the traditional central utility plant. We will report again as soon as there's anything tangible to report. And if you would like a copy of the resolution of the Halton Healthcare Board, which I've just described fully to you, the clerks have copies which they can distribute to you. And as I said during and to deal with Councillor Knoll's question, as I said during the municipal election on this question of how we're financing our donation, which I gather is what the councillor is concerned about, my position is, as I said in the election, the town can afford to issue a debenture for the amount of the donation in 2015, and new business revenues that we are developing will reduce the tax burden of carrying the costs of the debenture. To give you a comprehension of the scale or the proportion of things, over 30 years, it would take a little more than $100 to $120 a home over the 30 years of the term of the financing of the hospital to carry that debenture. And when we have further news on the new business revenues, we will, of course, hasten to bring them before you for your interest and edification. And that's my report. Councillor Knoll.
I haven't had a chance, obviously, to read this report in detail, but can you expand on the change to switch to this traditional energy plan for the hospital? So I presume by that announcement you're saying that we're no longer proceeding with the district energy program that we had anticipated on site?
That's what I said.
And is there a reason why what happened? Because that was a fundamental part of this entire program. We were counting on revenues from that, et cetera. So what happened?
The hospital determined that it would be better to proceed with a traditional central utility plant.
And so Oakville Hydro is no longer part of that program?
The project is standing down. The hospital has undertaken to cover Oakville Hydro's costs.
Okay, so that was my next question. So the hospital corporation is going to offset the costs that we've expended to develop this district energy program?
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay, and is that's factored into this reduction in the local share as well, or is that going to be offset against the local share number?
It's nothing to do with the local share.
Nothing to do with it. Okay, in terms of the what is the timing now in terms of coming back to us with more financial information with respect to this suggestion about a debenture in 2015 and the cost analysis or the revenue analysis? When will we be able to see that? I know it's a while before it has to happen, but it would bring some comfort.
I could not give you a date.
Is it being worked on now?
We're working on it always.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there a mover and seconder to receive the reports of the town manager and the mayor? Councillor Lapworth and Councillor Elgar, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The reports are received. That brings us to our confidential discussion items. We have item C1 with the concerns personal matters about identifiable individuals, and we also have C2, which is involves the security of the property of the corporation, both of which are permitted uses of meeting in camera. Councillor Adams.
I'll move item C1, recognizing that I believe Councillor Elgar wished to speak about C2 in camera.
Councillor Adams moves C1 without going into camera. Councillor Knoll.
We may not have to go into camera if you can answer this question without going into camera, which is possible because I'm not going to name names, but the document or the document, the shareholder direction that's in here refers to amended and restated. Is there anything beyond the change in numbers in there, or there's no redlining of this document, so I don't know what was restated or renumbered? Do we need to go into camera to discuss that, or?
There's no change. However, to be more precise, in order to give effect to the recommendation to change the number, you need to understand that that means you're changing the shareholder direction.
Right.
But that's, simple.
But that's all that is, right?
That's all that is.
There's nothing else. And what about the political donation issue that we had or required the corporation to include in the amended shareholder agreement? Has that been addressed yet?
We are the author of the shareholder agreement. We have included it in the shareholder agreement.
Right.
They have adopted a policy, a board policy against it as well. So you have belt and suspenders.
Right, but we don't. But it's not in this. It's not in this revised copy. That's what I'm asking, right? We haven't addressed it in this iteration.
I'd have to turn to the commissioner to ask which version you got.
I didn't see it. That's why I'm asking. So
Well, Anyway,
Through you, I have reason to believe that this is the final document. If it doesn't contain that wording, because it was amended by council, and I have to admit, I didn't peruse it to see if that language was in here, but I believe this is the final agreement. But we can confirm that.
anyway, it absolutely has
Is the
been done
June
by council,
consolidation.
and I mean, if you'd like, we can stop and read it together and see if it's there, if you're not sure it's there.
I don't need to read it together, but if, could we just stand this one down just for a moment and then deal with the other one, and I'll scan it again? Because I've already gone through it twice and I can't find it.
Whether it's in it or not, it's properly in it, and the clerks will assure that it's in it.
Yeah.
It was passed by council.
Okay.
So your concern, Commissioner Lalonde.
Yes, I'm sorry for the confusion. This is the latest copy of the shareholder agreement. Legal department did make the changes to the shareholder agreement. I revised them myself. If they're not, or I reviewed them myself. If they're not in this copy, it's an oversight, and we will make sure that it is included. The work's done.
I'm fine with that commitment. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Are you seconding Councillor Adams'
I
motion?
will, thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? The motion is adopted. The motion just adopted was that the Board of Directors of Oakville Hydro Corporation be reduced to 9 directors from 13 directors, and the shareholder agreement will be amended accordingly. And the resolution submitted by Oakville Hydro Corporation with respect to the election of the directors and the chair of the board be approved with the candidates presented in the appendix added thereto, and that the mayor as shareholder representative pursuant to the shareholder direction be authorized to sign the resolution on behalf of the town in its capacity as the sole shareholder of Oakville Hydro Corporation. And that leaves us with item C2, which is the land sale that, as I understand it, Councillor Elgar and Councillor Lapworth would like us to go into camera for. So that is a properly moved motion, seconded by Councillor Lapworth. All in favor? Opposed? Madam Clerk, that carries. Would you please switch the chamber over for an in-camera meeting? All right, council now resumes public session, having met in camera for a matter concerning the property of the corporation. And it is moved by Councillor Elgar, seconded by Councillor Lapworth, that the staff recommendation in item C1 be refused and the staff be authorized to proceed in accordance with the direction given in camera. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. And now, Item 1. And item 1, I think item 1 we just dealt with because of the, let's just.
Yeah, we just need to receive it.
Okay, so we just need to receive item 1. I'll look to the same councillors for that motion, Councillor Elgar and Councillor Lapworth. All in favor? Opposed? The item is received. And that brings us to your information items, which have been circulated electronically. And new business, we dealt with that I know of. Councillor Robinson has some new business.
Your Worship, I'm just wondering if you'd give me the latitude just to direct everybody's attention to the ice cream with Alan and Ralph event on June the 18th. Well known, now there's about our 8th year. Where's the camera? June the 18th, ice cream and brownie, free, 2 to 4 on Saturday.
And I want to assure you the camera shot was perfect. The work by staff there was excellent. That brings us to the regional reports and question period regarding town boards and advisory committees. I see none. Are there any requests for reports? I see none. Then a pair of kind councillors could move that the bylaw 2011-70 to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting be moved and passed, and that would be Councillor Adams and Councillor Johnston. All in favor? That and opposed? That's carried. That ends our agenda. Thank you for your time and attention, and we are adjourned.